Welcome to the Dwarven Forge Build of the Month for November of 2019. This is the Harbinger's Hideout. I built this using a bunch of our brand new Caverns Deep pieces, which I'm super excited about. I used 3 sets. We have Encounter 1, the Summoning Chamber, Encounter 2, the Prison Passage, and 1 of our basic Cavern sets from our original Caverns line. There's an entire write-up for this thing that can be found on our website, and the link is in the description below. The story of this is there was an imprisoned warlock who's broken out and fled to a cavern complex that's hidden. The players are hired to go get him, but there's a lot more than they're expecting in the caverns below. Let's go see what's waiting for them, shall we? So this is the build for the Harbinger's Hideout. We have a few spare pieces left over, although we're going to use this insert wall in the adventure. But other than that, we used all the pieces. I did a little thing over here where I stacked up 6 floors, or leftover floors, as a base for this passage so I could level it out with the entrance area. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward building. I built all of these sections on terrain trays so that I could fly them in as the players discover them. So I'm going to fly all these things out and we'll walk through the story sort of as you would reveal it on your table for the players. So let's check out the story of the Harbinger's Hideout. So, the players are going to enter through this corridor here. This is representing a sort of 30-foot corridor that comes in from the outside, but this is all the pieces we had left. It's just enough to kind of set up the minis in marching order and they can figure it out from there. They'll be confronted with this wooden gate at the end of the passageway. It's not locked, but it is sort of trapped. It has a little bell rigged up to ring when the door opens. It's pretty easy to find, pretty easy to disarm, but if they just swing it open, it'll ring this little bell. Once they open the door, they work their way on down here. I'm considering this whole area down here as difficult terrain, so we're using this, this rough terrain piece here. All these squares are difficult terrain, and the base of this piece. In addition, it actually, because we got so many jagged rocks and stuff, anybody that falls prone on it or gets dragged over it takes D4 piercing damage. When the players come down here, there's a dark tunnel going this way, and there's a tunnel going this way that's kind of got some illumination coming from it. If they've set off this bell, or if they're particularly loud, out of the darkness down here, they'll get attacked by, we're using this cool little feral blink dog here, is representing what we're calling these roper mongrels, right? So they are these otherworldly hounds that have crazy tentacles that come out of their mouths. They're these mouth tentacles that can reach 30 feet. So they're gonna come out here and they're gonna try and pick off the characters. They're gonna try and lash them with their mouth tentacles and yank them down across this jagged terrain here and then drag them down this corridor into screaming into the darkness. You definitely don't want that to happen to you, right? We'll get to what's down there in a sec. So hopefully some sort of cool combat will occur. Alternately, if the players are sneaky, they disarm this, they come in really quietly, then these guys will probably come in later and maybe ambush them, maybe not, depending on what their actions. And that's it. So this is sort of the entry area. So then let's assume they fought these guys, they killed these dudes. We're dead. And then, of course, they're like mollusks to the flame. They'll get drawn to probably the bright area, right? At least they'll just look into this room to see what it is. So at this point, we'll fly in sort of the central part of this thing in here. So I'm overlapping those terrain trays, ease of flying in. 2 little loose stragglers. So it's dark in here, except whatever the PCs have for illumination, because I didn't use the LEDs that could go on this wall to make it moody. But this area is glowing. So in this room, the big central feature is this cool glowing platform in the middle of the room. And standing in the middle of the platform, we're using Mercer the Prisoner. Here he is our warlock, the Harbinger. So he is in here, and he's still got his manacles on because he's an escaped prisoner. So he's standing in the middle of this thing, and he's in this kind of like weird trance, not really moving there. And it's kind of this weird, eerie scene. If the players move in to investigate, his eyes snap open, but his eyeballs have rolled back. He's just looking there with like weird blank eyes, and he starts speaking this otherworldly voice, and it's the voice of the crazy, his patron, this, some crazy Cthulhian creature from the other side that taunts them tells them it's too late to stop this terrible plan. And it speaks in like weird, not, you know, it's clearly not of this plane, right? It's something's a little off. And it creates this terrible rumbling and cave in. So to represent the cave in, pop this apart, drop solid insert wall, boom. Now the PCs are sealed in the cave. So now the players are trapped in here and might hopefully make them nervous. And this guy's like, you know, it's too late. My ascension is nigh. The Harbinger has done his deed. So he'll kind of go dormant. The guy kind of twitches around, and then the warlock comes back to himself and says, and can start talking to them. So normal, say, I've done some terrible things. I bound the 3 seals so my patron can enter. You must unbind them before, you know, you've got a few minutes. You must do it fast. And you can actually, if you want, you can set like an out-of-game timer to like make it like really frantic for the players, that they've got to unbind these 3 seals before the time runs out. So and then he'll probably kind of like lose his mind again and just sort of be like wobbling. You just enough, give them enough information but not tell them how to do it, so that they can have to scrub around and find it. So one of the seals is located through here. So we've taken the double door, we put the barred door insert in there. So the warlock idea is sort of barred this thing up because he was like, he was upset with what he'd done. So they could smash through that if they want, pop that insert out, whoop. They can make their way in here. And in here, we have the magnetic change crystal. So I'm using this magnetic wall freestanding in a 2x1 floor, just to be like a wall, something like that, to make this little chamber here. So in this chamber, if you want for play, you can pop off the arch topper, pop this out. The idea is there'll be a body of one of the bounty hunters that came after the warlock is in here, and there's weird scrawlings on the wall. It says something like, we needed, you know, a soul to feed the master. The idea is he's written the directions of what the patron told him to do on the wall, and the players have to kind of reverse it to break the seal. So in this case, the soul is trapped inside this crystal and they have to release it. So the brute force method, like trying to hit it with weapons, it's got a necrotic force around it that protects it, so it drives back anyone that's trying to hit it with a weapon and does necrotic damage to them. But you can use Arcana or Religion to try and coax the soul out. You need to do a couple of religion checks, because it's fun to use the, you know, how often do you actually get to use religion? So they can do a couple of religion checks to get the soul out, or they can force it out with some Arcana checks and deactivate this thing. I have a little thing over here where I have this diagonal wall overlapping this straight wall by 1 inch, but it feels kind of like the curve of a cave, because I wanted to work in this 1-inch wall to just sort of make things as uneven and organic as I can. And this build is a nice example showing how our old original Caverns pieces work nicely with the new Caverns Deep pieces. They're sort of all interchangeable, playing together really nicely. So then let's say the players come on down this way if they want. So they will discover. All right, so we're going to fly these in. They come out here. We'll discover some bits. So players can wander on in over here. This looks like a dead-end area, but it's got 2 notable bits. First, on this wall here, I'm using this Dwarvenite vein piece this is some sort of chalky mineral deposit. It's not Dwarvenite like we designed, it's some sort of interesting chalky mineral, and I use this little tiny crystal here from the summoning circle is at the base of it to sort of show that it can flake off and chalk off and inspire players to maybe knock some off and take it to use later. And then over here, they can feel a little bit of a breeze. If they do some investigation or perception, they can discover that there is a little hole in the back of this wall. So I'm using this is the secret compartment insert wall, but I've taken the compartment off because there's that little tiny hole in the back. There's actually a hole in the piece. And we're using that as a wall. If you want to avoid the players metagaming, because this kind of looks like it's not really a full complete wall, you could remove these and use another corner piece, something like that, or something like that. Well, let's just use this for now because I'm going to remove it in just a moment. Anyway, so if they find this hole, they can stick their hand in, and there's 2 ropes, a rope on the right and a rope on the left. If they pull the rope on the right, rocks fall down. They have to make a save or take some damage. If they pull the rope on the left, it opens up, and it's a secret compartment. It's a little secret door. So behind it, slide this in, there is a little chamber, and in here, there's two noteworthy things. There is a cool little bag of gems. There's a bunch of gems, treasure, yay! And there's this cool curved horn that has a magic dwemer to it. And it is a horn of blasting with a couple of charges. What's cool about it is it will never backfire, but it's only got two uses, two charges. They can use that to blast their way out of the cavern. It's just enough to blast through the cave-in. And they could also use it on the crystal over here that they coax the spirit out. They could use the horn of blasting and blast the crystal, and that would shatter it and release the soul also. Or they could just use it and hold on to it later to blast enemies or whatnot. So then if they go from here, if they go this way, they will find some sort of magical circle in the center of which is this really awesome, slimy human heart, freshly carved out of a bounty hunter, and this empty bowl. And the heart is magically pulsing and beating because that's wonderfully eerie. And then on a wall is scrawled some instructions from the patron to the harbingers. It's something like, fill the heart with the lifeblood or something or other. So all they have to do on this one is take the heart and squeeze out all the blood out of it. But it's going to fight them back. So it's pulsing and it's wet and squiggly and blood spraying out and whatever. So they have to do 3 consecutive strength checks. And every time they squeeze it, when it inflates again, it makes this really weird sound, which will cause they have to make wisdom saves or freak out because this is weird, otherworldly screaming heart sound. As they're trying to squeeze the blood out of this heart into the bowl. And if they can do that, they break this seal. Also, each time they're breaking one of these seals, you get to roll to see if the patron can take over the warlock again. And if they do, he's still trapped in this weird sort of stasis field over here, but he will trigger some layer actions, which will cause some debilitating effects in the area. Whatever, try and generally make it hard, maybe taunt them, maybe say some stuff. Every now and then you can have the patron manifest and make their lives difficult as the clock is ticking, right? The idea is that rapidly they're going to be in here and the time is, they're going to be racing. Hopefully they may even split up and are trying to do different things all at once to try and break these seals before the time is up. So once they pop this one, maybe they'll go all the way back to the beginning where that other passage they didn't check out was. So then the players can go back this way to this entrance area and go down the passageway that the roper mongrels came from. We can drop this thing in. Like that. All right. So around this bend, they come to another little dead-end passage. And this one, we have a big, cool mushroom in there. Look at that. Cadaver cap mushroom. And this whole area is just covered with spores. Right? So if they didn't trigger the bell, and they haven't made a lot of noise, the roper mongrels haven't come out, the roper mongrels will still be here. But chances are, at this point, they will have already dealt with these guys, and this area will be empty. If they're really astute, they'll see that these things are growing in the remains of the body of the third bounty hunter there. And the walls are completely covered, but if they use a little perception, a little investigation, a little nature, they can check out, they'll see that on the walls, there's a couple of spots where there's a chalky mineral deposit on the walls and the spores aren't growing there. And they can see that the spores are growing pretty quickly. Sort of as they watch, they're sort of creeping along the walls and slowly spreading and filling this area, coating the walls and working their way up towards the surface. And scrawled on the floor, there's a message the warlock, the Harbinger, wrote out that the patron was telling him, and the instructions are something about spreading the moist darkness across the land, making the land nice for the master. So what they need to do is reverse that. They need to destroy all these weird otherworldly mushrooms. So they can do it the hard way, which is burning it out with fire or attacking it. If they burn it with fire, they start hitting it, they can destroy it ever so slowly, but it's going to release all these clouds of spores, and they'll have to make some saves. If they fail, it charms them to protect the things. So then there's going to be some fun, exciting infighting, and it's just going to be, it's going to burn a lot of time, and time is against them. The smart way is if they see that on the walls where that chalky mineral deposit is, the stuff's not growing, they'll realize they can go in there and they can investigate a little more, do some nature checks or whatnot, and figure out that this stuff is actually toxic to the mushrooms.
And if they're smart, they'll remember that over on the other side of this complex, on this Dwarvenite vein wall on the other side, there's a ton of this chalky material. So they can chip off a bunch of this, they can spread it on the mushrooms, and it'll quickly, instantly kill it. And that's the fast way to destroy these mushrooms and break this seal. So then, when they've broken the third seal, things will happen. Whenever you hit the time limit, hopefully the players will have broken the 3 seals, but even if they haven't, the patron will take control of the Harbinger's body and unleash his power and start trying to break into the prime material plane. It will take over the body, he'll get a bunch of cool layer actions, have sort of weird eldritch magic and tentacle blasts and the like. And for every seal that the players have not destroyed, he has another powerful power. So the big advantage is if they've destroyed through all 3 of these, they've taken out a bunch of his power, and it's a pretty doable boss fight. For each one that still remains, he's going to be more and more powerful. If all 3 are still up, it could very well be a TPK, and this cavern becomes their tomb. Hopefully they're smarter than that. So we'll have a fun fight with this guy here, and then hopefully they can defeat him, and then they can use the Horn of Blasting here and blast through the cave-in to earn their freedom. And if for some reason they've used up the Horn of Blasting or they couldn't find it, you could have, this could create some sort of rift after they destroy them. They could jump on here and it'll rift them. Maybe makes them like, blows off all their clothing and their equipment so they show up naked back in the tavern, because that'll be fun. And then they get out of here.
And that was the Harbinger's Hideout. It's all sorts of fun with tunnels and tongue tendrils. Try saying that 3 times fast. Also, a great example of what you can do with just a few entry-level sets. Pretty cool layout. So please comment below about how you think I injured my fingers, and then like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more crazy content like this. And now, it's back to the forge, anvil, something, son of a bitch.